welcome. My name is Markabadi. Welcome to Feel It Friday. Yes, and I am feeling it. Wow, from the beginning, it is an intense wave of consciousness. If you give yourself to it, and that's what I'm suggesting, give yourself to the waves that happen in everyday life and the waves that are happening in your life now with all of the shit that's going on. Oh, wow. Today, this is, yes, another live, inspirational, common unity collaboration. And we have wonderful guests today. We have the human, that is Matthew, in the house. Matthew Human, yes, live from Costa Rica, where it's about to pour down thunderous rains of heavens down onto his tin roof. So we'll see how that goes. Please like and share, most importantly, share, have watch parties, get this out there, because we have the people, we have the places, and we have the consciousness all blend into one so that there can be a holistic resonance of now with yourself. So without further ado, Matthew Human.
Buena vida, amigos.
Welcome. Tell us where you are.
Thank you. Brother, I'm on my farm here in Finca. Bueno, my farm is called Finca Vida Verde. It's a part of the Tacotal Colectivo, which is a 25 family eco village, part of a greater network of communities on our road outside the town of San Mateo in Costa Rica, about in the Avocado Mountains west of San Jose.
Nice.
And yeah, it's about to, it's raining a little bit. This could be as light as it gets, or it could start dumping and blowing. And so we'll find out. We'll see what happens.
Perfect. You're all queued up to give us some tunes to start with, huh?
Sure, yeah. You want to start with a song?
Absolutely. Let's try and beat the rain, huh?
Sounds good. All right, I'm gonna sing. Well, it was just Earth Day, so I'll start with a song called "Simple Ways," and this is kind of the way I feel about living here on simple reality. You hear me well?
Perfect.
Perfect. Some people like the TV, not me, I just watch the sky. I feel a better sense of freedom, watching the hawks and eagles fly. In the rivers, running free out to sea, running through the canyons, yeah, that's what fills me. It's time to plant our gardens, get ready for another year. Take advantage of this weather while the sky's still blue and clear. Corn and beans, squash and kale like to grow together. Save our seeds to keep them dry. We'll be eating right forever. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in the garden. It's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves those simple ways. Nice stretch in the morning, rise and say hi to the sun. Know we got a lot of work to do, and there's enough for everyone. Rain's gonna be coming soon, got a lot of wood to move. We gotta keep this family dry, it's the only thing we do. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in a garden, it's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves simple ways. Real food from the garden every day. Jarring up what we don't eat and putting it away. Life in our own village. Listen to the children play. Swimming in the river at the end of the day. Whoa. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in a garden. It's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves simple ways. My heart, it really loves those simple ways. Heart, it really loves those simple ways.
Beautiful. And so even with the connection, you're on a 3G network, right? Even with
I'm on a
beautiful.
3G network. No worry about 5G here, baby. They ain't coming anywhere near
me. You've got a way to go before you get to 4. That's great. So tell us about this place you're on.
Well, about 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I was invited to come down to Costa Rica by one of my best friends, Stephen Brooks, who is an amazing permaculture educator and community builder. And at the time, we just kind of, he started a permaculture education center in the South Caribbean called Punta Mona. And it's a permaculture education, regenerative living and design center. Mm-hmm. And he brought me there, and then we kind of just, Stephen was on tour and took me all over the country. And one of the places he brought me was down the road here, another community that he was starting at the time called La Ecovia. And basically that's a 40 family kind of food-centric permaculture designed neighborhood. Like more, they're on the grid, and they have, but they're also on the same river that we're on. And at the time, nobody was living there. And so we walked up the road, and it was many years before anyone was, another 5 years, but it was in the early stages of development. And so another thing that they started was Stephen had already, kind of a collective of a bunch of our friends, mostly from like Burning Man and music festival kind of world, the conscious underground. A lot of us didn't have the money to be able to invest in that. There was a lot of development done. So they got together and they found this land, which is we call Tacotal Colectivo. It was 9 years fallow. And we walked up the road. We ate mangoes that were dripping off the trees. We jumped in the river. We were gone within an hour, and it had a major impact on me. And that year they had an opening in the community and invited me to join the community. And so now we have 25 members, including one of the Juan Pablo Barahona, who you had on your show last week. So really, really proud to be re-representing Tacotal here. And and so we have a new community. Right behind me is this new community that they're forming called Alegria. It's kind of like taking La Ecovia's model and going even bigger. And now there's 120 lots that are going to be back there. So if anybody's interested in Costa Rica, reach out to me, because there's a lot of opportunities in our neighborhood.
There's definitely a lot of family over there. Who's Alegria? Who's running that project?
Okay, so Alegria is another one of Stephen's projects. Stephen's the co-founder of that as well, with his father, who also co-founded La Ecovia. And basically they took what they learned with La Ecovia, and they're developing, you know, another project. And it's kind of going to be, I think, more, the lots will be a little bit bigger. The views over there are excellent. And it's just going to be beautiful. Like, I've seen the plans. They're going to have a co-working space and a big community pool, hot tub. There's already a giant, beautiful yoga deck over there that we do dance parties on, and I do concerts over there. So it's, I mean, for me, it's like when I first went to my first rainbow gathering in 2001, I had this idea of like, how can I live this way forever? I don't want to leave this.
Right.
And so my life has been a search. I traveled around the US many years touring my music, and I would always go to eco villages to perform, because I wanted to get to know, like, how does this kind of community work in long-term reality? And so then coming, I feel about
the community. What is it about the communities that are, you know, because I see a lot of your work is done with kind of, I labeled you as a sort of a revolutionist musician, someone who sings about, you know, revolution, but also a lot of your songs are about love. So, you know, you sing about like Monsanto, and there's one clip I've got which I want to show people, depending if it rains or not. And then most of the other stuff is about love as well. So there's this combination between a radical change system and sitting back in the connection of human to human.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately it's towards the same goal and the same end, which is that, you know, how to be the simplest humans we can be on this planet, and how to do things, you know, take in mind the trees and the earth, and like how to live responsibly on her. That doesn't mean like never cutting down a tree, right, especially if you plant 30 fruit trees in its place, you know, sometimes that's necessary, but it does mean like taking into consideration. And in terms of, I'm also a permaculturist, you know, more these days than a revolutionary. Right. You know, I think I started off kind of like fighting against the things that I didn't want. And at some point I realized it was better for me to start fighting for the things that I do want. Right. And that was a better use of my time.
Right. So I think that's an important concept that people maybe get lost in, that the fight for, you know, against evil, as opposed to the fight for love. I
mean, ultimately, it's like, how am I going to spend my time on Earth? You know, yes, I could spend it trying to uncover all these nefarious plots and plans,
right,
that may or may not be real, that I may or may never come close to finding out the truth. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so no one ever really knows. But I know one thing is for real, is that I can plant a fruit tree and it will be there in 15, 20 years to feed people. And that's where my energy is. Like, no matter what you do, no matter what, any of that stuff, 5G, Bill Gates, vaccine, whatever, any of that stuff, you could still be making a difference by planting gardens and reducing your carbon footprint, reducing your access, you know, making your access to food easier, help grow food to feed your neighbors. These are things that you don't have to think about. They just are there, and they will benefit you anyway. So.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I went out walking yesterday during one of mine and Z's revolution.
What? Did you have a permit?
Yeah, I didn't even have a face mask, which was interesting. I was actually breaking the law in Marin County. But walking past all these gardens, beautifully tended, like bushes and flowers and different things. And I thought, what would be the case if every garden here along the block, instead of growing pointless plants, they grew food? And what if we had an organization that came and redid your garden and planted all the food in your garden? And for that, they did it all for free. And for that, you know, the first third of your garden is public. And people can come in and pick the food from that third of your garden or whatever. Or you have to put it out in baskets at the front of your house for people who come back, and you could grow strawberries here and potatoes here and all different things.
Well, that's actually, you know, one of the main tenets of La Ecovia and of Alegria is that they're built around the community garden. So it's not exactly the same thing as like having your personal garden, but I love that they've done these gorgeous big communal gardens that are well kept, well cared for. Like they have a full-time garden staff that takes care of it. And then as you pay your HOA fees, like, you know, maybe you'd be on a golf course, you'd pay your HOA fees that keeps the uptake of the golf course. Instead, you get a big box of food every week from fresh from the garden. And that's another model, you know, that could be had. It's like,
and I definitely want Stephen on the show. So if you can connect me up after, that would be great. One of the things you mentioned is that, you know, to live simply, as humans, live the simplest you can. And I absolutely respect that element. Some people would say in response to that, though, that we're shunting our ability to create the complexities using the mind. We're wasting our God-given cortical ability if we just all go back to living on farms and just growing fruit trees. What
I don't agree. I disagree. I mean, okay. So one example that I like to give is have you heard of the Hopi Guidestones, or are you familiar with the Hopi? So there's a Native American tribe called the Hopi that are from the Four Corners area. They believe that they were given the history of humanity, and that they're tasked with holding this history and knowledge of humanity, and that they've since written it down, and they've got pictographs that, you know, show in sequence kind of the history of humanity, and with an oral history that goes along with it. And there's actually some, you know, places where they believe like it's actually lined up throughout time and history, like when they call the gourd of ashes that looks like an atomic bomb in the pictograph, they call it the gourd of ashes, and well, that's what the atomic bomb essentially was. But you know, that's one example. But at the very what it really interests me was at the very end of that, what happens at the end. And what happens is you have a divergence. You have a stairway going up to the stars and going up to, it's undefined. And then you have people on the ground planting corn. And I don't know like about anybody else. All I know is I want to be one of those people planting corn, because I have no desire to leave. This planet is my home. My name is human. I have my mother tattooed twice on my arms. Like, this is my home. I'm not leaving. No matter how bad it gets, I'll die here if I have to, you know? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I like it. There's the practical element. I suppose the question is, how do the people who are caught inside the industrial world, the cities, the development, the tech sections, how do they incorporate this wisdom and knowledge of living with the human nature of nature?
Well, I think there's steps, you know, it all starts with steps, you know. One could be like, you know, starting co-housing. You know, if you're living in an apartment, you're paying, everyone has their own lawnmower, their own, start sharing with your neighbors. That's a simple step. Grow a few plants. That's another simple step. You know, maybe that leads to like a decision to join a local CSA. And maybe that decision leads to like, oh, maybe I could plant a garden actually. Hey, would you come join me? And then it's just like, it's these steps. For me, it led to living in community in Costa Rica. And, you know, in permaculture, we have a concept called transitional ethics. And I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that it's either this or that.
Right.
And I think we see, if we look through time, you'll see that like transitions don't necessarily always happen quickly. You know, it takes time, and I trust that it is happening. And regardless if it is or not, I'm going to do my part to leave it a better world. I can't control what other people do. I can't control humanity, how they're going to do it. All I know is I want to be in right relation with my Mother Earth and do the best I can to my friends, family, community, and my species and greater ecological world.
There are so many gems in there, human. So many gems. I mean, it's like not letting perfection get in the way of progress is the thing that occurred to me when you mentioned transitional ethics. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, there's the concept of paralysis by analysis.
Right.
Have you heard that before? Right?
I have not, but it makes perfect sense.
Okay, so it does. It's like you get stuck you know, if you think of it, there's a balance. You want to design. This is why permaculture, I think, is the answer forward, because you want to design it appropriately so that you have a plan and you're moving forward, and it's, you know, you have some idea of what's going on so that you don't, you know, kind of get stuck in this, you know, too many options. But at the same time, if you spend your whole time planning and thinking and then never actually pull the trigger and start doing it, you're never going to get anywhere. So it's about finding that balance and not getting too stuck and not being afraid to do, like, I didn't know how to build a house. I didn't know how to do plumbing. I didn't know how to do electrical. I didn't even know how to tie wood down onto a truck. I'd never even driven a 4x4 or a pickup truck until I moved to Costa Rica. But I learned all of those things, and now I have a lot of skills. And I bled, I sweat a lot, I cried a lot. Like, there was times when I just like wanted to give up. I was just like, you know, when you're driving up the road and you've been waiting all day in hot, sweaty town for like the wood for your house, and like then you tie it down on your truck, and it's your lights are blinking on and off your 4x4 road. You're going up it, and the wood's falling off your truck, and you're the only one there. And it's like, I cried a lot of tears, you know, making this happen. But in the end, you know, I'm greater for it. And I'm glad that I didn't get, you know, let fear stop me, or, you know, getting stuck in analysis.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the energy of permaculture. What's permaculture kind of actually mean?
Well, permaculture, you know, the basis is like permanent culture. Like, how do we design a world that functions like efficiently? I mean, the main thing is, if I think, you hear that? The main thing
was that thunder.
Yeah. It's close. The main thing is for me is like efficiency. I've always been really drawn to like efficient aspects, but there's these main tenets of permaculture, which I'm not gonna.
No, I meant more the energy, the artistic energy of permaculture. What's the poetry of permaculture? What does it mean fundamentally to people?
I think fundamentally it means opportunity. To me, it means opportunity. It's like a chance for us to really survive, because we know the world that we're living in have been living in isn't sustainable. It's in permaculture takes it another level. It goes beyond sustainability to, we don't want to just live in a sustainable reality where we're just getting by. That's sustainability. We want to be living in a situation where we're regenerative, where we're thriving, where there's more than enough, and we're sharing that abundance. And I think like permaculture to me gives us an opportunity and a chance, really, because I've spent many years being absolutely terrified for the future of humanity.
Right.
You know,
I think on the permaculture front, in some way it honors the unique gifts and the consequences of each plant. Like, there's something about honoring the shadow aspect of plants inside permaculture, where you place one plant having this kind of like almost poisonous effect, protects the other plant. Mm-hmm. And so you're planting it there not because you're going to consume it, but because it's going to allow for the thriving of all the other nature around you. And there seems to be an honoring in permaculture of the complete nature of nature.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of look at it like, why? I don't really know how else. To me, it's like we use a lot of, you know, big words to like describe it all, but really, you know, my teacher, Steven, who's one of my best friends, who you'll have on your show, he just says it's duh. He's like, it's so much duh. It's like, this is just, it's duh. It's like, duh. Obvious. These two things help each other do it. Like, you know, the founders of permaculture, they just looked at nature and found like, oh, these are things that everything else in nature kind of abides by. Maybe we should start doing that. It seems pretty basic and simple to me, but anyway.
Absolutely. And in the same way, there's some elements of that in the music.
In my music, or music in general?
In music that hits chords, that hits notes, that hits heartstrings, it seems to have the combination of mental awareness and meaning inside the words, but also something inside the rhythm, the mathematics of the rhythm of the beat.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I haven't spent much time trying to like analyze it, because I find so like it's so overwhelming to be music. It's like, I don't, but you're right. It is. It's all these things put into one, and the guitar complements the voice complements the ears. It's like this whole kind of like cycle in and of itself. So yeah, and humans are a part of the cycle. So.
Kind of like permaculture, musical permaculture.
Musical permaculture.
And so you're working with communities out there. Do you find that music brings together the community in a way that solves problems that otherwise would be difficult?
Yeah, music makes everything better. Totally. It just makes people feel lighter. It just does. It's like, you can say things as an artist. You can say things that you wouldn't really be able to say otherwise. It's like you can express difficult concepts and ideas and frustrations through music that you really would be hard to like do kind of, and you get people that like masses of people potentially that are listening. So you can reach a lot of people all at once. So in community, I find like we kind of, music is a big part of everything we do. In fact, I'm wearing my Envision shirt, which is a music festival here in Costa Rica that I've been part of since year one. This was our 10th year this year. And Steven's also one of the co-founders of. And I've just watched the way it has, there's aspects of the festival. I've been going to festivals for 20 years and performing at them, and I'm getting a little old for some of the stuff, to be honest. Like I don't like to leave my farm that much, but I make occasional like calculated decisions to go, and this is a good one. And I've watched the way it's woken up an entire generation of young Costa Ricans and kind of brought together Costa Ricans and Europeans and Americans and people just kind of from all over the world come to this thing. And even if all they do is create a spark, that spark can lead to, that could be the first step that we were talking about. It's like, so I find music to be an essential part of that, among many other potential things, but that's one thing.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you connected into all those communities there. It feels like Costa Rica is a real collection hub. Do you think it's really? Is there a limit? Is there a fear? Is there a concern that we might gentrify this beautiful Costa Rican thing by everyone from California piling down to Costa Rica?
Well, I suppose that is one. I've heard that that fear and that feeling, and I see that sometimes when I look at some of the other areas of Costa Rica, and maybe sometimes in our neighborhood, like little bits of that pops up. But ultimately, I don't see it that way. No, I see it like Costa Rica is it's a different kind of place. Like I've spent, a good amount of time with the Costa Rican people. I love their openness. I put myself in their shoes too. It's like when people, I like the exchange of culture and the exchange of information that happens. Like when I was in the US, like if I met somebody from Costa Rica, I was always like, wow, that's amazing. Oh, great. Like, I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to like, I like having that kind of a mix of culture. And we are moving into this world where the world is getting smaller. Maybe that's even backing off now with air travel being more difficult, but absolutely, like, Costa Rica is a different kind of place, For me, it's like the hippie homeland. They banned their military, in like the late 50s, early 60s. I can't remember the exact year, but they banned their military and...
well, they have no military.
No, Costa Rica is one country. They have no military. They've put all of their resources into healthcare for the people and
Wow.
and education. They're some of the smartest people around. It's funny when you talk to, like, you know, when I first came here, I think I had this very skewed vision. I mean, I had a lot of respect for the culture. I didn't really know much about it. A lot of my idea of Latin America was kind of skewed by the American, like, you know, this idea that we are like the epicenter of the world and culture and education. And it's just such BS. Like, you know, like, I find that Costa Ricans are so much more educated than most Americans I know. And that's just because they have a really good education system.
Right.
Like, they don't have and because they have so much, their social programs, I don't think there's as big of a, you know, there's not a giant, like, we hate our government, we hate, you know, we want to overthrow this. Like, there's not, the political division is much less here. I mean, it exists, like, there's differing viewpoints, but not in any way close to the degree like we have in the US. So I had this kind of vision of, like, you know, well, you know, Latin speaking people, like, we see them as like the poor Mexican immigrants or the poor El Salvadorians that come, you know, sneak across the border. They're not very educated. They're good laborers. Like, but the reality is, like, that's just everywhere that are just poor, uneducated people looking for opportunity. And just like in the US, there's also, you know, really uber wealthy, spoiled brat, really cool, like, trying to do good. Most people here, I find, are really cool and conscious and, like, trying to do good no matter what.
I suppose fundamentally it's, you know, it's applying permaculture principles where you don't overload any one area with one thing, that you always have this synergistic combination of cultures and of plants in different areas to make an integrated society.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, I mean, Costa Rica's entire economy is based on ecotourism. I mean, the whole idea is, you know, people come here not only for nature, but to be educated. There's probably more permaculture education centers here in Costa Rica, and, like, yoga teacher trainings and, you know, biological courses than probably anywhere in the world. And it's a small country. So, you know, that's my business. And my interest is in not only being a good example and setting a good example, but also to educate others and to make a difference. And I find that my voice is somehow amplified here, because the things I sing about they're not just words. You can see them all around. You know, when I sing about a tree, it's not this idea of a tree. It's like, it's actually a tree, you know, like, there's nature, abundant nature around. And you want to talk about, like, permaculture. Well, it's just, if I showed you my farm, I could just show it to you. I don't have to, like, but I can sing about it too. And then you can go look. It's
like the environment embodies your music, or your music embodies the environment, whichever.
Well, you know, the Grateful Dead used to quote a Woody Guthrie song that was, you know, going where the climate suits my clothes.
Right. Holy shit. That song is so meaningful to me.
Oh yeah, going down the road feeling bad, going down the long dusty road. Woody Guthrie's version from the Dust Bowl era. Grateful Dead did it. I mean, I loved the Grateful Dead growing up.
Is that a Grateful Dead song? Going where the weather suits my clothes? No.
No, it was based on a Woody Guthrie song called "Going Down the Long Dusty Road" that he wrote about during the Dust Bowl era. You know, he was a poor, like, traveling musician during the Dust Bowl era. And then the Grateful Dead, they did a lot of Americana, like early Americana folk stuff. So they changed it to, I don't know who changed it exactly to "Going Down the Road Feeling Bad," but that was their version. And there was one of the lines in there was, "I'm going where the climate suits my clothes."
Weather suits my clothes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important. It's like, I used to go on vacation as a kid, and I felt better when I was in the tropics. Like, I didn't go to the tropics that often, but, like, I remember the first time I went to Florida, or the first time when I was 16, I was in a marching band that left. We were in Tennessee, and it was New Year's, and we got the opportunity to march in the Rose Bowl parade in Pasadena, California. That was my first time ever spending a winter being outside, like it was like 75, 80 degrees there in Pasadena. And I was like, I didn't even know places like that existed. Once I'm from upstate New York originally, which is like cold. I mean, there's still probably like 3 feet of snow there right now. You know what I mean? And it's like that a lot of the year. So to then, experience Tennessee where it was like, oh, okay, this is a little milder. And then to go to California, it was just like, holy crap, like this is amazing. And then eventually to Hawaii, which led me then to the tropics in Costa Rica.
Amazing. To Maui, huh? You were on Maui?
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time on Maui, mostly Kauai and the Big Island. I love the islands out there. I feel so much my heart feels really home there. Magic. It's a magical place. It really is,
Absolutely. And maybe at some point we'll get to show the video of you in Hawaii telling Monsanto to fuck off.
Yeah. That was during the Occupy. That was during Occupy that year, and we did Occupy Monsanto outside Monsanto's headquarters, because on Maui, what they were doing was their main seed breeding, like where they developed the seeds and bred them, was on Maui. It was a part of the old sugar plantation, and then while we were there, where we were standing in front of was the newly funded Kihei police department that somehow magically got funded to be put right in front of Monsanto's headquarters.
Yeah, lucky coincidence.
That's not that happens.
Right, Matthew, speaking of harmonic, wonderful voice and your voice being heard, do you want to give us another tune?
Sure.
What do you fancy?
I want to do are we going to do more? Are we just one more song? How many songs do you think we'll do?
You could, I mean, look, we've got 25 minutes left. So depending on how much
do a couple songs. I'm going to do this one. This is one I wrote, as you were saying, like you saw me as this revolutionary. And I think a lot of people used to see me that way. And when the elections happened, 2012, or where are we at? 2018 or whatever, whenever the Donald Trump and all that stuff was happening.
2016.
Has it been that long? Jesus.
4 years,
okay.
Isn't it?
Oh God. Anyways, when that was happening, I was just kind of like, I was traveling the US, I was living in Tennessee, and I was just like, Tennessee's it's a red state for one. Nashville's a little bit of a blue dot, but it's still very conservative. And, you live in California. I lived in California and Oregon for a long time. And you kind of get sucked into the bubble of like conscious progressivism. And it's hard to see outside that sometimes. Living in Tennessee, it's not so hard. Like I met plenty of people that were Trump supporters, even friends of mine that were like, they believed full-heartedly what they believed. And I may have we had to agree to disagree on some things, but I certainly didn't want to get involved. People wanted me to write this, scathing anti-song about like, where's the powerful revolutionary song that we can all rally around? And I milled on that, and this is what came out because anyways, I'll let the song speak for itself. I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican, I'm not white, I'm not black, no, I'm not Indian, I'm not American, I'm not a terrorist, I'm a human. I'm not a city boy, I'm not a country man, not suburban, working 3 jobs to pay the rent. I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a cyborg, I'm a human. I was born on the earth, third rock from the sun, member of the Milky Way. I need water and food, shelter and love, though I wouldn't mind some chocolate and a hot tub today. I'm not a woman, I'm not a man. I'm not gay, I'm not straight, I'm not bi, I'm not trans. I like to snuggle, don't like trouble. I'm a human. I was born on the earth, third rock from the sun, member of the Milky Way, so they say. I need water and food, shelter and love, though I wouldn't mind a mojito and a massage today. Doesn't that sound good right now? Come on. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jew. I believe to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Hindu. I'm a human. Yes, I know I'm complex. I'm just a hot mess, y'all. I'm a human. I can hear you singing at home, right? Are you safe?
Amazing. I think that was one of my favorite songs of yours. Sound got a little bit dodgy just at the end when you said, "Can I hear you singing along?" And then,
oh really?
And then we couldn't hear you. That was a funny bit. You reminded me that I went to get chocolate.
All right.
Pure 100% British chocolate. This is.
No, I'm not British chocolate. Come on.
It's obviously not from Britain. I wonder what the hell it is from.
Probably from Africa.
Hopefully Peru. Anyway, of course it doesn't say. Why would the British say?
Pure British chocolate.
It's the only one I can find with no sugar.
Oh, good.
James Sundance brought me some nice cacao last time he was in America, actually.
He's actually got a lot right over here somewhere. He's going to be one of my neighbors very soon.
So I'm so excited about, you know, your work with the community. And I like the idea of what you just sang in that song, that you know, you're not this, you're not that, but you are human. And it kind of reminds me a bit of John Craigie. You know John Craigie?
No.
Oh, you have to check out John Craigie's live stuff. It's very similar to yours, and then he tells stories in between each song. He's like a comic musician. But the point is,
like, I'm not that funny, but if I was funnier, I'd do those same things, I'm sure.
Of course, I remember the time when you had just performed a gig. I think it was at Divinatory, and your mic was still up. And someone went up to it and started spitting into it. Oh, yeah, blah, blah. And you kind of quickly grabbed it and said, "No, thank you. This is my mic. This is my, you know, I keep this for me only." And it was like,
well, yeah, you got to have, you know, when you're an artist, like, you got to keep your stuff clean from other people's germs. I played enough really disgusting bars with enough really disgusting drunk people to learn that lesson in the early days.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hold on, somebody's telling me they have a cacao. Justin has a cacao distributor. Yes, definitely. Ecuadorian organic cacao. Definitely. I'll take you up, Justin. So what does the future hold? I mean, you're farming. Have you got your own land there? You bought into a commune? What's happened?
Yeah, I joined a community. I'm part of a 25 family eco village, and I've got about an acre and a half here that I manage, 2 shares of the company, of the community. And I have about an acre and a half that I manage. I'm planting fruit trees. I've got a garden. I'm having a lot of problems with iguanas right now. And leaf cutters are constant.
They're eating your food.
Yeah, they eat the starts in the garden. I didn't want to fence the whole garden. It's really challenging. They're a really challenging bunch. I'm starting to get creative with how I'm gonna deal with them. But
are they big? Are they this size iguanas or this size?
Yeah, like this big. Right. Yeah, pretty big.
So you just need some sort of fence, right?
What's that?
Some sort of fence.
Fences, they climb and they go under, so it's not really the main thing. I had a fence around my peppers. It got through anyways, so that there may be some kind of possibility to do that in the future. Right now, I don't really have the resources here anyways.
Right.
Which, by the way, reminds me, if you like my music and you want to support my work here on the farm, patreon.com/MatthewHuman. And you can follow my iguana journey, actually, because I have one of the things I like doing is I have a private WhatsApp group for my patrons. And it's kind of a community called Human Culture. And I post like a daily update from the farm, like just kind of a little bit what's happening here. You can watch my iguana adventures. But yeah, so a fence is one option. I've also considered eating them. And I've been a vegetarian for, you know, for, I don't know, almost 20 years and vegan for most of that. And
do the locals eat them?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, the native people here did, and some locals still do, you know, particularly around Semana Santa, like Holy Week. It's kind of like a tradition. Most people in Costa Rica don't really eat them, you know, but, you know, people when they live in the bush, people, a lot of the indigenous Nicaraguans still really do. And, you know, I'm kind of a little, I mean, I've just been thinking about it, but it's like, if I'm going to have to like kill them, which I don't really want to do, but I may have to do, then I find that I'm going to want to probably put them to good use in some way. I don't want to just kill it and not have it be used. So
absolutely. Yeah. I honor that.
That's permaculture too. And I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I'm still a vegetarian for the most part. I eat fish, but you know. Anyway.
Because I mean, permaculture applies to the psychology. What I was getting at before, I think, is that permaculture is not just limited to plants, but it is animals, but it's also us as humans and how we interact in community. How are you dealing with like shit that comes up in your community? Because everyone's still human. You're not in Star Trek time where everyone's like evolved.
Oh my God, bro. You have no idea. In fact, I was telling you right before that I just got off a 3-hour call with my community as I was like, they were still going as I hung up so that I could join this broadcast. But we had a 3-hour community. We normally have our annual land meeting. So we have an annual land meeting where we all get together face to face here on the land.
This is the 25 families, or it's 25 individuals?
Yeah, 25 families. I mean, it's kind of a rough, like I'm one person and a number are single. So, you know, but it just, you know, one day I'll have a family or something. And then, you know, it's just better than having to count each individual person. But we have 25 like shareholders, is another way to put it. Yeah. And we don't all get on. We've created a system of pod leaders where every like 3 to 4 people is a pod, and they have an elected pod leader. And then when we do these kind of group calls, like I'm the pod leader for my pod, and you know, then I take the information back to my my pod, and we make the decision together, and then I go vote. And it's very democratic. We're a consensus -1 system. It's very challenging sometimes, but I'll say after 11 years, we're finally starting to really overcome some hurdles. And you know, we've had one
-1 is interesting. So that's basically everyone can agree except one, and it still gets passed.
Yeah. So for instance, we have I think 8 pods. So you know, if 7 pods agree, then we don't do majority rule because that doesn't really seem fair to everyone, you know. But if you can make 7 out of 8, you know, groups happy, that's a pretty remarkable accomplishment, actually. Yeah, and in most cases we can find some kind of agreement, even if it means agreeing to disagree. But you know, in general, I find like live and let live. Don't try and make too many rules. Like we're all pretty like on our land. We're all pretty radical, to be honest. We're all pretty like, you know, give us our freedom. Let us do what we want. I mean, we all come from a different perspective of life, how to do things. Some of my land partners, what you're looking at behind me, you can't really see it very well from this angle, but it's my kind of like my backyard. And I've created 2 terraces, 3 terraces down below, and they're all planted with fruit trees. And in order to do that, I had to clear a lot of brush. And some of our land partners are just very like intense about like, you can't cut trees and you can't cut brush. And, you know, they're into conservation.
Right.
Which is their, you know, in most of our land, is protected in conservation. We're all into conservation to varying degrees. You know, more than half of our land is in communally held conserved land, which is, you know, we have 77 acres in total. So, you know, that's like 40 acres of that or more is actually like protected, will never be touched, you know, primary forest forever. But on our own personal places, we kind of have different perspectives we come through. And as a permaculturist, I believe heavily in design. And one of those things is if you're gonna plant fruit trees, you need sunlight. Fruit trees don't grow in the shades. Most fruit trees, bananas and cacao, they will. But the ones I wanted to, and the ones that I want, you know, my goal is to like live off the land. My goal is to like, when this COVID thing happened, I was in Texas doing a border run and visiting my mom and sister, and I was just like, is this where I want to freaking be if this border gets shut forever? And no, hell no. I got on a plane and I booked it back here because I've been preparing this place for this exact situation to the best of my ability. And I'd like to have a place that I can eat completely off the land and also feed other people. And by the way, I think this is a great time to mention that I'm 40 years old, I'm single, and I'd love to find a little homestead chica. I'm 5'4", so like 5'6" and under.
So
wants to come join me on the farm.
You're short but sexy. That's what I say.
Short but sexy, baby. Just turned 40. I'm ready to rock, homie.
Ready to rock. So you're looking for a wonderful, intelligent, musical chica to come and live on your farm and be part of the common unity.
Musical, farmer, it doesn't have to be just like me, but you know, those are all good things, you know, like somebody who can tune into the land and help me like make this place better. It's just, you know, homesteading is hard. Yeah. It really is. I've done it. I've been doing it. I haven't done it myself. I've always been blessed to have, you know, as a musician, as a touring musician, I meet all kinds of people. I'm part of the greater conscious community. A lot of like crazy hippies have come through here and helped me with projects. I had Fantuzzi here last year for a little while. You know what I mean? Like I've had
Fantuzzi. I have to get Fantuzzi. Thank you. I can't believe he wasn't first on my list.
You're welcome. And I've had some really remarkable assistants and farm managers and housekeepers or house sitters and people that have really helped build this place. And it's kind of like, to me, in a lot of ways, I call it the playground, because to me, none of this like working on the farm doesn't feel like work. I enjoy doing it. And those are the kind of people I want to attract here, people who are like, wow, this could be really cool. Let's build this garden, do this. And like, or let's get this ready, because it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's good for you. It's like, why not be doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So do you want to, you're queuing up. What have you got for us? Got another song?
Yeah. I think so. I think I want to do Breathe. I just re-recorded this song in Nashville and Muscle Shoals with a great producer friend of mine named Norbert Putnam, who produced Margaritaville for Jimmy Buffett. He's a well-known producer, and I connected with him, and we just like hit it off. We wanted to kind of create something beautiful that would make the world put better love into the world, and he really wanted to redo this song. So this is one of the songs we did. And I call it a breathe along, and you can also find it on Spotify and by joining my Patreon, but just go ahead and breathe with me. Once upon a time, there was a people who forgot how simple life really was. Instead of sitting around with families, we were individuals sitting around boxes with screens. We forgot how to grow our own food. Hunting was replaced by factories, very cool. And everything seemed to be divided by plastic, made of petrochemical oil, which was extremely toxic. And these people also ran their cars on that oil, which polluted the air and the water and the soil. But the ones who benefited didn't care about the earth. They were only interested in how much the oil was worth. And when they started running out, they started fighting for control to secure the world's supply. Petroleum was the goal, so they assembled their armies. Wars destroyed life, they hid the truth from the people, kept it out of their sight. And millions of people were betrayed by these lies, kept to kill each other and watch each other die. Entire cultures were destroyed before our very eyes. We just sat around and watched the fire fall from the sky. All the time we knew that it could happen to us, so we were living in fear. We were all on the same bus by invading other people. We created more enemies, but they believed that they were doing it to make themselves free. This is the world that I grew up in, so you understand my brain when it begins to spin. Searching for solutions, a better way to be, and I think much clearer when I begin to breathe. So I breathe in the air. Take a deep breath. It's everywhere. Heal my spirit, heal my body, heal my soul. I know who I am. Consciousness spinning through sacred air, through sacred air. Yes, and it's time for us to believe who we are. The shamans, the healers, whatever your call is. Actualize and realize that we come here to balance these violent times. Warriors of peace, ambassadors of love. Always think center when push comes to shove. Third eye wide open and dancing to music. Accepting our powers and knowing how to use them. Coming together, we circle the globe. Seeing the oneness, our chakras aglow. Our vibrations what we want it to be. Keep it high and we'll know how it feels to be free. All we gotta do is stand these spaces, breathe real deep and enjoy each day. We're self-asleep with others and we'll all survive together. Tomorrow is now and there's beautiful weather, so free. Breathe in the air. Take a deep breath. It's everywhere. Heal our spirits, heal our bodies, heal our souls. Oh, I know who I am. Consciousness spinning through sacred air. Through sacred air. Through sacred air. Through sacred air.
Beautiful. Sacred air. Sacred air.
Sagrado aire. En todos lados.
Todos lados. Matthew Human, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us the delights of your life, of your being. What have you got planned in terms of any digital output? Can people see you more than they're seeing you now?
Indeed, indeed they can. Well, I've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives and a lot of live stuff through this. So you can follow my Facebook page, Matthew Human and the Human Revolution. I am on Spotify. I have about half of my material on Spotify under Matthew Human and the Human Revolution. But what I reserve most of my material for, and this is like over 100 database of over 100 recorded songs in it. All the, I have special patron exclusive stuff, is through my Patreon, patreon.com/Matthew Human. And it's also, it kind of comes with a little window into my world. As I mentioned, the WhatsApp group, Human Culture, which is like, I post a daily update about what's happening, interviews with my friends like Stephen Brooks or members of my community, or wherever I'm traveling. I try and, it's kind of like my community and, you know, my little patron community. And it's my way of
your personal blog.
It's kind of like my personal blog, but it's also a community. So like sometimes, you know, they'll post, some of my patrons will have interesting they're all amazing people doing amazing things. I'm so honored by all of them. And sometimes they'll post interesting things. So yeah, I have it priced at like $3. So it's pretty inexpensive. I try to make it inexpensive, so it's not too much, but hopefully people get good out of it. And it supports everything I do here on the farm. And you know, my music, which you know, it's a labor of love. So
Patreon Matthew Human.
Patreon.com/Matthew Human.
Yes. And it's just been so great having you on, mate. You know, it's always excellent to hang out with you in any form, digitally or whatever. I'm looking forward to coming down to Costa Rica. I think it's calling me. It's calling me loud.
May 16th, they open the border. Well,
Really?
as of right now, they've extended it till May 16th, but I don't know if you'll be able to find a flight maybe until June.
I have to wait until I get my citizenship before I can before I can leave.
Oh, you're in the same boat as me, kind of. We're
Right.
both illegal. We're an alien. We're a legal alien.
We're a hippie in California. Right. Matthew, thank you so much.